The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Some interesting stories for you today. Number one, a hacker who has previously hacked some ISIS Twitter accounts with gay porn appears to have done it again. This is Wachula Ghost. This is a hacker who is associated with Anonymous. First targeted ISIS in the wake of the Orlando attack at the Pulse nightclub when Omar Mateen shot 49 people dead. He said that hacking ISIS is actually easier than one might think, and he's managed to access more than 250 of their social media accounts. And he previously said he can access a lot of these accounts in under a minute because the accounts have limited, I don't know if actually he referred to the accounts or the ISIS members. They have limited technical abilities. Maybe that means they pick really insecure passwords, or the verification method they use for changing passwords is not very secure. And he says he's going to continue doing it. And apparently he's not homophobic. The reason he's doing the gay porn thing is sort of as a protest because ISIS is anti-gay. But it's still sort of odd when you hear, oh, they're getting hacked with gay porn.
Are we just desensitized now to the fact that ISIS has social media?
I
mean, the idea that like these people are out there to reject modernity, and then on the other side of that coin, they're trying to recruit people via Twitter and Facebook. It's astonishing to me.
They would say it's consistent because they would argue that they are, in order to do God's work or
establish
whatever,
a caliphate to attract people to come over and join the group.
They may need to, at the micro level, do some things that might not coincide with their worldview or whatever, you know what I mean? So like it's sort of a means to an end. Hey, listen, we're not about social media and globalization and modern whatever, but this is how we are bringing people in to serve the Prophet Muhammad and blah, 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 blah.
And you could tell that this hack would really piss them off too. We talked a little bit earlier this week about people who are the most anti-gay are often projecting and are perhaps gay themselves.
Yes.
It would be interesting to see if some of these people in ISIS are investigating who actually was the person that hacked them and the different content that they put up there. And
I'm sure they're doing a big investigation.
Yeah, maybe they're doing a big investigation and they have to turn against each other.
I wanted to follow up on that. The thing we said earlier this week about some really anti-gay people end up being gay. I don't actually, like I said in the segment, I don't actually think that most anti-gay people are anti-gay. I think for a lot of sort of casually anti-gay people, it's like, hey, this is what my religion teaches me, or I've been brought up to think that this is bad or whatever. For the people that devote their lives to being anti-gay, I just can't imagine doing that for any rational reason other than anger about not being able to live your life the way you want, because how does it affect your life, you know?
Yeah, it's always the people who are the most vocal about it. Those are the people that you suspect.
Yeah. When we talk about the war on drugs and just in general dealing with drugs as a health issue, we often talk about addiction versus punishment and a few other issues. But something we don't talk about enough is the idea that when drugs are illegal, you're not regulating what is in the drugs, and that can be very, very dangerous. And in fact, in Vancouver, at a Vancouver, Canada border a drug check location, they have been testing seized drugs, and they have determined that almost 80% of street drugs, 80%, okay, tested for fentanyl at a safe injection site. And they were laced with fentanyl, which is a potentially deadly opioid, according to a 9-month pilot study. This is one of those health issues that we're talking about, which is you don't even know what you're having when you're getting when drugs are illegal and you're buying them off the street. And it's a really strong case for a more Scandinavian approach to drugs, where they say when you get to Amsterdam, I believe it is, we covered this. And I know that it's controversial whether Holland is or is not part of Scandinavia, but so in Scandinavia and or in the Netherlands, just to be clear, not
Portugal
a federal,
too,
and
it's
in Portugal as
well.
Drug
policy, yeah.
You are told you will not be arrested if you call the police because you are overdosing off of drugs. You will not be arrested, so that people will hopefully not be afraid to seek help if they maybe have gotten some tainted or laced drugs. And, most of the tested drugs at the Vancouver safe injection site were heroin. And again, 80% of the heroin was testing positive for fentanyl. You can't possibly overstate the danger of that.
Yeah, and it's not surprising, too, because whoever is manufacturing, I guess, this meth and heroin are going to cut corners where they can, where they think it makes sense, because that saves them on costs.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they don't really care about who their clientele is because they're just trying to push their product.
You would think they care in that they don't want to kill their clientele,
Right, yeah.
because then they kill their customers. But just lacing heroin with some fentanyl, it's still something that's going to have an impact on people. So they won't necessarily, it's not the same as cutting cocaine with flour, right? Where it actually decreases the potency. You're just putting something else in there. It's a boon for them.
Yeah, we really have to get to a point in our society where we can look at drug policy in a whole new way, because, if there's just basic things like we know the purity of these drugs are better, or we know that the needles are clean, or we know that the methods that are used for taking in these drugs are improved, we'll just be in a much better place in our society, and I think we'll be much better prepared to deal with having drug users and, trying to treat that.
It's a harm reduction approach rather than an approach of punishing, quote, criminals. You've been to Portugal, right?
I have been to Portugal, yep.
So when I was in Lisbon, it was my first experience with just being openly sold drugs on the street at cafes, other than Montreal. So I've been to Montreal many, many times, and I think when I was like 19, just walking down the street, bunch of 19-year-olds, people would casually walk by, and they'd say, "Hey guys, need any trees? Need any trees?" Just as we would walk by. That was one experience.
It's funny. I think you said being sold drugs, which implies that you bought them.
Well, we were being, you can be selling something without someone else buying it. You know what I mean? Yeah. We didn't buy any drugs.
I just thought that was
funny.
funny.
Let me make that clear. In Portugal, I would be sitting at a cafe, and it'd be just plain daylight, and a guy would be holding a few pairs of sunglasses, okay? This was just a cover, though. The sunglasses were supposedly what they were selling, and it would be a sunny day. They'd walk by the cafes and show people the sunglasses. When they would get to, I guess, people that they were profiling and saying they look more like they would buy drugs, and apparently my girlfriend and I looked more like we might be maybe of the age of someone who would buy drugs.
The age, and perhaps foreign too, on a vacation, trying to experiment, I guess.
Have a good time, yeah. So then they would be holding the sunglasses with one hand, but then the guy would pull out of his pocket. It looked almost like a Cadbury egg, but it was hash. And he would say hash, 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 and then next table over, sunglasses, depending on what the person looked like. And it happened probably 10 times throughout the trip, that either just walking in like a square where people are hanging out, or at a cafe, they would come by with this. It was basically like an egg-shaped, it almost was like the shape of a suppository wrapped in a saran wrap. And it's, in my mind, I was thinking, even if I wanted to buy some hash, the last thing I'm going to do is buy a suppository-looking thing wrapped in saran wrap that's been in this dude's pocket for probably hours, if not days.
What if you were like, "Oh, no, I'm all set on the hash, but those sunglasses look very nice. I'll take a pair of those."
Yeah, bought a pair. Maybe it would have come as a surprise to him. Were you approached by sellers of drugs in Portugal?
It happened to be, no, not in Portugal. It happened to me in Spain.
Okay.
Particularly on the southern coast of Spain, because I was obviously very out of place there. Oftentimes I was just walking alone, obviously college age, didn't look like I was native to that population.
No, I mean, people in Spain are mostly white.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't look Spanish. You know? I mean, I'm white, but I don't look Spanish.
What does that mean, though?
Darker features, I would say. Darker hair, tanner skin.
Fair enough.
Okay. And
so you didn't look Spanish based on your assessment of that. No, I'm asking because my stepmom is from Spain, and her family's they're all white.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. Where was I going with this?
You were sold drugs. There was an attempt made to sell you drugs in Spain.
I didn't buy them.
No, I know.
Yeah.
How did it happen, though?
Very casually. I mean, that's happened here. I've been in Boston Commons, and that'll happen every now and then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe I just look like someone who wouldn't be an undercover cop, I guess, so they think it's safe to ask me.
Maybe that's more what it is, yeah. Interesting. Anyway, so 80% fentanyl. It's not good. It's not good. And what's crazy is you can end up, we know that people become addicted to heroin because they get a prescription for opiate painkillers. They become addicted for an injury. They become addicted to the opiate painkillers, so they start buying them on the street. Then they realize, you know what? The heroin is cheaper. So they switch from street opiate painkillers to heroin, and then they end up buying heroin that has fentanyl in it. So that's the path from a legal doctor's prescription for painkillers to fentanyl.
Unfortunately, that's all too common.
Yeah. All right. let's move on because the story is sort of
It's very
depressing
sad.
story. Yeah, this is not a particularly pleasing story, but it's now being reported that Ford is cutting their global workforce by 10%. Okay, this is why when Donald Trump cheerleads that he saved 600 jobs or whatever, we're not talking about a systemic change to the business environment of the U.S. nor of the world. And now Ford, again, it's an American company. So you can say, well, this is their global workforce that's being cut. Yes, this is an American company's global workforce. They are cutting 10% of their global workforce because of issues of demand. They only need 90% of the workers that they have. So they are cutting 10% of their workforce for strategic priorities, is what they say, which basically means we don't need as many employees for the stuff that we're selling,
Yeah,
and we're going to get rid of them.
Sorry, they have apparently 200,000 workers worldwide, so my math isn't the best, but I would say that's 20,000 workers.
I believe it is.
You would have to suspect that some of this has to do with lowering demand, losing it to maybe other auto manufacturers.
Sure.
But
Also, it could be lowering demand for cars in general.
yeah, public transportation getting better and better in some countries. But also, you'd have to imagine a lot of it has to do with automation, because the things that robots can do is put cars together.
I talk about automation so much, and I didn't even think of it. But yes, that's yet another reason, which, by the way, there's no plan to deal with. Trump has no plan to deal with it. It hasn't been discussed. It wasn't discussed during the debates in the 2016 election. We have no idea what's going to happen with that.
Because when you say that you're losing your jobs to Mexico or China, there are people that you can blame. There's
Harder
the
to
other
scapegoat a
factor.
machine, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least right now we're not too upset with machines. Maybe once they start taking over the world, we'll get more angry at them, Terminator style.
You should see my email inbox. Believe me, there's plenty of people angry with machines.
Are they? Yeah, or even spam too.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so anyway, I don't expect to hear Donald Trump talk about this. Only the good news. Only hear the good news from Donny Boy. That's it for today's bonus show. We will talk to you on Monday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.